sustainable fashion means what?
Yeah, so the way I define it, Steve, is, two-sided from a brand and business perspective. So a business that really embodies sustainability at every stage of their business, so within how they produce, but also how they market and sell and the quality of items that they produce, but then also from an individual perspective, so us as people, as consumers, how can we adopt a more sustainable lifestyle through the clothing that we wear and buy.
Anything you'd add to that definition?
Yeah, I think, sustainability in fashion has like a long list of definitions, and it could mean that from a social perspective, that the workers were paid a living wage or a fair wage to make the garments. It could mean that the clothing was made in more environmentally ways, such as, not using fossil fuels to produce the clothes or not using fossil fuels themselves in the clothing, which is, 67% of our clothes are synthetic, which is our plastics. Looking at things like reducing the amount of water, the water pollution, less chemicals. So really clothing that is made with people and planet in mind.
So there's a superficial definition, and then there's a really deep dive definition on this. Yeah. And I guess one of the things we want to figure out is how much of this is really going on and how much of it is sort of advertised as going on, but really isn't. Am I right, Jacqueline, in saying that maybe 10 years ago, people were more interested in getting something that was fashionable and they didn't think too much about the sustainability of it, but they do think more about the sustainability of it today?
Absolutely. I feel like people are definitely considering it more. There's actually this concept called the say-do gap. So about 80% of consumers say that they want and prioritize more sustainable purchasing behavior and where we shop, but about only 10% actually do. And there's a list of barriers there that we could talk all day about as well. But I think the concept of sustainability used to be just for a certain group of people, and it's become a lot more mainstream, which is really exciting to see, but it's also added a lot of confusion for people on understanding where to shop and how to understand what are the best brands to buy from.
Well, let's talk budgets for a second, because everybody is worried about affordability today, and everybody wants a bargain. Can you really devote yourself to being sustainable and get a great price at the same time?
Okay, so my favorite answer to this is that the most sustainable garment is the one that's already in your closet.
Gotcha.
So really, we need to think about buying less. So when we have that urge to go and buy something new, we need to really slow down and think about, do we really need that? Do I already own something in my closet that's very similar? Because the other percentage thing I'd like to throw out there is this 80-20 rule around, we wear 20% of our wardrobe 80% of the time. So I always tell people, get acquainted with your wardrobe, remind yourself what's in there, and reconnect with why you bought it in the first place.
Because a lot of stuff never leaves the closet.
Exactly. And then in terms of the cost, okay, so yes, buying something that was made fairer and made better for the planet is going to cost more because it represents the true cost of that garment. Something that was sold for $2 or $5 on these ultra-fast fashion websites means that somebody somewhere wasn't paid to do that job of making that garment, or worse. And so round out, invest in sustainably made clothing that's new, but round it out with buying vintage and secondhand.
The message of buy less is not something clothing manufacturers would like to hear, I presume. Is this like built-in tension in the industry here?
Absolutely, and I feel like it's really hard as individuals. We're constantly being marketed to, like 24/7. We're being marketed to through our phones, through ads, online in stores, and so it's a lot of pressure on us to have to ask those questions. I always say ask why before you buy, and shop your closet. Shop like the 20 or 30%. Shop the 70% that we're not necessarily wearing, because there is that pressure on individuals. But it's really hard when there's the demand from all the brands to make their own profits as well, right?